Welcome to European Railway, the video magazine for the continental enthusiast. In our first section, we pause briefly to sample steelworks activity near Liege, before looking in detail at the freight line linking Muese and the busy marshalling yard at Montzen. We are now about 5 kilometres north of Liege, near Montzen, just south of Chartel steelworks. Here, a new SNCB Class 77 diesel heads one of the frequent molten iron trains to Serang. The train is approaching an overbridge which carries the line over a waterway linking the River Muese with the adjacent Albert Canal. The steelworks operate a fleet of small 040 shunters, some with permanently coupled slaves. Here, number 91 and number 95 top and tail this short train of internal user wagons into the sidings at Montzen. busy rail route from Antwerpen through Hasselt to Aachen in Germany is one of the busiest freight routes in the country. Here, a pair of Class 23 electrics cross the bridge over the River Muese on 28th April this year, just to the west of Wiese. The riverside buildings and moored boats make this area particularly appealing. To the east of Wiese, the line is seen descending into the valley of the River Muese. This is the scene looking north close to the village of Varsage. In the far distance, just below the cement works quarry, can be seen the motorway from Liege to Maastricht. The route is also known as Line 24 and sees roughly 2 to 3 trains per hour in each direction. This is German Class 215-023 deep into Belgian territory on a westbound train of cars, seen here near Nap. On 28th April 2004, track work was being undertaken on Remersdael viaduct, one of the popular photographic locations on this stretch of line. Here, 2024 heads this westbound mixed freight. Although still very busy, the sizable yard at Montzen has lost much of its wagon sorting responsibility and is now used as a staging point for trains receiving a change of locomotive. To see a train like this really reminds you of being back home in Britain. The German Class 242 is the only giveaway, as this through freight from Gremberg to Wembley arrives just after midday, with a new Class 444 Desiro electric unit in the consist on its way for delivery to South West Trains. The Gremberg to Wembley service has received a change of locomotive and departs behind a pair of Belgian Class 23 electrics. One of the most spectacular structures on the line, and arguably in all of Belgium, is Maresnet viaduct just to the east of Montzen Yard. The structure is on the only part of the route that isn't electrified, the 7 kilometres from Montzen to Butzelaar Tunnel on the border with Germany, and Holland for that matter. The viaduct was completed in 1916 and stretches for 1153 metres, comprising 22 48-metre spans. The structure is currently having a complete refurbishment, with replacement of all of its spans and the strengthening of its pillars. 241801 is seen here with a train from Aachen running over the west end of the bridge, which has already been modernised. This is the view looking west from above Butzelaar Tunnel, as a pair of Class 55 diesels heads for Aachen. Finally, 5502 and 5541 head out of Gemmenicke Tunnel with a freight for Aachen. This really is an excellent line to visit, especially with its superb railway architecture. Just to the south of the German city of Regensburg, we drop in on Obertraubling, a fascinating junction station on the main lines to Austria and Munich. The line sees a wide variety of electric traction, not only German but Austrian and various private operators. Local passenger services such as this are formed of locomotive and coach formations. Litter clearance is a priority in Germany. Work continues here as 151024 heads this southbound container service on Monday 17th June 2002. This southbound local service departs with 143022 on the rear. (155s) also appear regularly on freight. This is number 229, seen heading south. There are around 2 or 3 freight services each way every hour, with Tuesdays and Saturdays being the busiest days. This is IC 528 from Passau to Dresden, with 101114 providing the power. This is the view looking south as 110223 passes with a service from the Munchen direction. Austrian dual voltage Taurus locomotive number 1116035 heads Eurocity train number EC25 from Köln. Passenger trains are seen about every 10 minutes in each direction. Here 143961 arrives with a stopping service for Passau. Most of the freight traffic travels on the line to Passau and onward to Austria. Here 151040 heads this lengthy northbound working. Class 140 are still fairly common, although withdrawals are expected to reduce their use in the coming years. In our final scene, 140-551 is seen on this southbound container working. The Danish MX diesels were built by General Motors and are some of the most popular engines found in the country. In this section we follow one such locomotive on a freight from Herning to Lemvig. On a cold and misty morning in May this year, we went in search of one of the few locos in regular operation. We are at Herning on the diesel-operated main line from Struer to Fredericia, in the middle of the main peninsula of Jutland. It is just before 8 in the morning and the station is busy with commuter activity, with diesel units arriving and departing constantly. The sidings at the west end of the station are used to stable trains between duties. At precisely 8:26 on Tuesday 11th May, we saw what we had come for, a Class MX diesel operated by Lemvig. Number MX26 is used on the thrice weekly freight from Herning to the chemical works at Ruinland, and it was our hope to film the train as it made its way along the line. The race was about to commence. Staying in front of a freight train is more difficult than you think, with busy main roads adding to the problem. It took us over 20 kilometres to overtake the train, seen here just north of Oulum. This is Boer on the line from Holstebro to Vemb, just an hour after the train left Herning. This is Vemb just 10 minutes later, and the Loco had already run round. Lemvig operates the line between Vemb and Tybeuren, some 60 kilometres. The line from Vemb to Lemvig was opened in 1879, whilst the route from Lemvig to the fishing town of Tybeuren was opened 20 years later. Here the train is seen approaching Lemvig at 10:30 in the morning. The railway operates 3 of these Class YM diesel units for most of its passenger services. This one is seen heading south out of Lemvig en route to Vemb. Meanwhile, MX26 has visited the railway's servicing shed for fuel and is about to shunt the train over the crossover before leaving for Ruinland. The freight has to wait for a passenger service from Tybeuren to clear the single line section. Finally, just before midday, MX26 departs Lemvig for Ruinland. The train is scheduled to retrace its steps some 2 hours later. Situated just to the south of Brive on the main line to Toulouse, Srilak is famous for its impressive railway viaducts. We spent the late afternoon of 25th June 2002 situated on a small road that leads from Srilak to Soulage, which offers some superb vantage points overlooking the bridges. Here, a Class 6500 electric heads this southbound freight just after 5:10. Passenger trains run on an occasional basis, mainly during the peak early morning, lunchtime and evening periods. Some services are through workings from Paris, as in this train hauled by 26019. Other trains are local services running to Brive. These are a mixture of electric units and local hauled sets such as this. This is Srilak station, and 26005 calls briefly whilst heading the 1646 from Toulouse to Paris. During our 3-hour stay, we saw 5 freights, of which 4 were heading south. This one is seen just after 7:30. Finally, just after 8 p.m, and this unidentified Class 26000 heads this lengthy northbound liner. Running south from St Pölten, the 760mm gauge electric railway to Maresnet, or the Maresnetbahn as it is more widely known, is one of the most popular lines in the country. With unique vintage electrics still in operation, we sample activity at Maresnet and northwards to the junction town of Obergrafendorf. Here, a diesel rail car departs Maresnet station at 13:10 on a train to St Pölten. The line reached here in 1907, primarily to transport passengers to this famous Benedictine town in the lower Austrian limestone Alps. The town today is a major tourist destination with a resident population of nearly 2,000 people. For the railway enthusiast, the 85-kilometre line is home to the Class 1099 electrics dating from 1909, and which today are operated by the State Railway Company OBB. 1099-002 is seen shortly after arriving from St Pölten. The locomotives all received a major overhaul around 1960 and were fitted with a new upper body design. However, the frames, bogies and electrical equipment is still original, proving what a remarkable design of locomotive these are. We now move to Frankenfeld station on the northern half of the line on a more gentle countryside part of the route. We intend to revisit the more mountainous southern half in a future edition of European Railway. 1099-004 is seen arriving with the 1443 departure for Laubenbachmühle on 5th May 2004. 1099-011 arrives at Schwarzenbach on a quite blustery day with the 1424 service from St Polten. These locomotives are capable of speeds of up to 50 km per hour, weigh nearly 50 tons and were designed to haul up to 7 coaches on the mountainous part of the line to Maresnet. Ten 99-014 arrives at Obergrafendorf with the 1600 service from Maresnet. Note the livery variations on the carriages. This is the largest station on the route and is also the junction with the line to Mank. Here 5090-015 arrives with a service from Mank. This is 1099-011 with a train from St Polten. The town is the site of the only narrow gauge roundhouse in Austria. Here a diesel railcar leaves the shed shortly after refuelling. Class 2095 diesels are also employed on the line. This one arrives with a terminating service from St Polten just after 7 p.m. The Loco will leave the stock in the platform and run to the roundhouse for overnight stabling. Finally, 1099-002 is seen arriving from the south, running along the longest section of straight track on the line. This section has often been used for testing a wide variety of Austrian narrow gauge stock. There are currently weekly diagrams that involve 7 Class 1099s, with 5 being used regularly on a daily basis. It really is quite amazing that the locomotives over 90 years old still find themselves in frontline service on Austria's most famous narrow gauge railway, the Maresnet. The Class 218 diesels are the mainstay of many regional services on non-electrified routes around Germany. In this section we travel to the Hamburg region and then south to Hanover to witness the class at work. This is Hamburg, and 218-286 departs for Lübeck in April 2004. The 218s are very popular now with German rail fans and others who travel to Germany from all over Europe, particularly from the UK, where diesel-operated locomotive haul trains are very difficult to come by. The line from Lübeck to Kiel also sees a number of peak hour services operated by 218s. This is 218457 about to call at Plön with the 1702 from Hamburg on 11th May 2004. Although we were praying for a 218 to be on this train, we weren't expecting this much help. This is Dörneberg on the Hanover to Bad Harzburg route, as 218273 arrives with the 1335 from Hanover on the 8th of May 2004. As 218108 leaves Salzgitter-Ringelheim station, we would like to thank you for watching this edition of European Railway. Look out for issue 14, available in late October.